Well, let me just say I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and I mentioned to Ellie that this topic area, particularly the keynote and set of topics around collaboration, these are topics that are near and dear to my heart, and I'm said around these issues. I feel like it's the street where I live. I mean, I'm constantly confronted with these issues on a daily basis. I'm real fortunate to have the opportunity to spend this time with you, and so I'm going to share some ideas that I have, and my hope is this will be fairly interactive, and so if you have questions or comments along the way, that you will feel free to interrupt me. And so what I want to say was that I think one of the issues that all of us here could very likely agree upon at this point is that the art and skill of collaboration is ultimately about relationships and how to cultivate, manage, and negotiate them. And I was just saying in a workshop, and because relationships are at the center of collaboration, I think it speaks to how incredibly difficult collaboration is, because I think relationships are very difficult and quite messy. And so, you know, there's a way in which I think it's, when we're in relationships, they are by design, by necessary, complicated and convoluted. And that there are a couple salient factors that contribute to the complexity of relationships. So I just want to walk through these very quickly. So one is, and it doesn't really matter what kind of relationships we're talking about, that I think that power and privilege are always critical dimensions of a relationship, but oftentimes they're very much unacknowledged. So I was saying in the workshop here a minute ago that I know of no relationship where power and privilege are not critical dimensions of the relationship, that they're an integral part of relationships. And so to the extent that relationships involve, organize around power and privilege, I think it adds to the complexity of relationships. It also makes relationships a bit convoluted in many ways. Then I think there are these sociocultural variables, for lack of a better term, so that as much as some of us would like to deny or avoid or repudiate, but matters of class and race and ethnicity, sexual orientation and age and religion and ethnicity, ability, all of these issues are threaded throughout our relationships. And we can choose to not acknowledge them or not, but it doesn't preclude the fact that they, in a very significant way, impact our relationships. I don't know of a single relationship, any single relationship interactional pattern that's not shaped by the nuances of race and class and gender and sexual orientation and these myriad of contextual variables. And this is true for collaborative relationships as well as non-collaborative relationships. So there's power and privilege, there's the sociocultural factors, and then the third factor that contributes, in my humble opinion, to the complexity of relationship has to do with the sort of synergistic relationship that exists between reality, perception, and self-referencing. And so what I believe is that relationships are doomed when we treat reality, which is, I believe, a subjective phenomenon, as a universal objective truth. So I think anytime that we treat reality as a universal objective truth, that it speaks volumes of what should be anticipated complications for a relationship. And then I also think that everyone has a version of reality that they operate from. And so that when we treat it as if it's a universal, that what we invariably do is to negate someone else's reality, if you will. And that I happen to believe that reality is manufactured, and the chief way in which we manufacture reality is through self-referencing. So we constantly, unbeknownst to us, use ourselves as a reference point. So anybody who is taller than me is tall. Anybody who's shorter than me is short. If you weigh more than I do, you're fat. And I think it was, I a comedian who said, that George Carlin actually said, that he noticed that when he's in a hurry and the person who's driving slowly in front of him is always an asshole. And when he has no particular place to go, he doesn't care whether he gets there quickly or not, that the person behind him who's in a rush is a maniac. So whether you're a maniac or an asshole depends on, what his needs are. And I think this is true for so many of us.